We are a group of volunteers, 10 volunteers that serve as members of the board. Every 2 years, they change over. And so starting in January, we were elected. So I'm serving as the president. We have a few other board members here, Brittany and Greg, Jackie, Viner, and Jim. You guys want to raise your hands so you know who they are, and those are the other volunteers serving. And this is our first speaker series of 2025. We plan to offer this quarterly this year, so there will be other events coming on that hopefully you'll be interested in attending. So I'm going to turn this over to Jackie, and then I'll wrap it up at the end. What our plan is Leona will speak until about 7:45, 7:50, and then we'll open it up for issues, and then we'll be able to be in here until about 8:15 or so, so an hour. Okay, if you need to use the restroom, there's one downstairs, and there's some water right outside of the room. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jackie, who was very instrumental in creating this event for us tonight. Okay?
Lovely to have you all here, lots of new faces, but I know some of you, so thank you for coming. And I'd just like to say that it's a pleasure to have Leona here. I think many of you have read the words we had in our advertising for this event. So she founded the BrazilFoundation 25 years ago. I will let her talk about it more. I'm glad because I understand in her kitchen in her apartment in New York. Is that correct?
No, my son would be upset because it was founded, he says, under his bed. It was a bunk bed, and we had a long table. He had just left for college, and that's where it all started.
Anyway, and this has grown tremendously. BrazilFoundation, I think, basically when she started, there were very few entities in Brazil that were socially conscious that had these kinds of programs. So she was an innovator in that way. And so I'm very happy that she decided to speak to us today, and we'll take questions later. And I'm going to now introduce you not only to Leona Forman, who's the person that did all this, but a friend. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jackie, and good evening to everybody. And I'm so happy to see all of you here. And many of you know me and know BrazilFoundation over the years and have been part of it and accompanied the journey where we are reaching today. 25 years is a long time. I don't know who was more involved in the building of BrazilFoundation, but I have to first mention my husband, Chef Forman, was always tremendous supporter, and without his enthusiasm or his good counsel or his criticism, it wouldn't have grown the way it has. And Alex Forman is here with us today as well. She's our daughter, and she too has been part of the organization from the very, very beginning, and has done a lot of things for it as well. She herself has now her own nonprofit organization that works on very interesting projects. She may tell you about it if there's time to mingle and talk. And our son, Jacob, under whose bed BrazilFoundation grew, is in Los Angeles, and whatever the recording we may get after this, I'm sure he would be very excited to see, and to see everybody here. I'm going to name some names and point to some people who have been very, very, very instrumental in helping BrazilFoundation grow. And there are three people who are sitting way in the back who work for BrazilFoundation today. Cecilia Osvaldo Cruz is our program director, and she has been with us for many years. I don't even want to say how many, I don't know. Isabel Quatlin has been working on issues having to do with race and um, equity, women, race, equity, and everything else as well. She is a powerhouse. And Yasmin is probably one of the newer people because we just met today for the first time. And I'm very happy to see you here, and she will help our technological passeio. So beyond, there is Armando Strozenberg, who is still sitting there, who is a friend, first a journalist, then a publicist, but a friend, a family member practically with his family, who has been guiding me. And he is on our board of advisors. Manuel Almeida is a very, very close friend from the times before Brazil Foundation, when we were both at the United Nations. And he too has given us his support and his interest and his enthusiasm when the enthusiasm was deserved. That was in 2013 that we were working closer together with the Fundo Carioca when we created this fund to have projects in Rio. And we had some projects that were in Santa Teresa, and Rosario de Almeida Braga and him were very close to what was happening there and inspiring me to fight on. So I'm so happy that you're here. Diego and Barbara, Diego was on our fiscal council of the Brazil Foundation. And so he knows us from the inside out, which is also very, very good. And Barbara is a close friend. And of course, Jackie and Bruno. And am I missing people? Claudius and Joe, where are you? I don't see you. Oh, there you are. Claudius and Joe Secon. In '94, I came to Claudius and I said, I'm going to South Africa and I need to borrow your film about voting, because Brazil had just gone through its first voting process, and Claudius has an organization called CECIP in Rio that works with images and content to inspire people to do certain things, and especially in education. And this was voter education film, which I took with me to South Africa to show there when I was there with the UN for the observer mission in '94 when Mandela was chosen president, and that was such an incredible. Anyway, that takes us into different areas. There are many people I do not know, and I'm meeting today, and I'm very happy you're here. And if you will have questions more than some of the others, please don't hesitate to interrupt and to ask. Why did I have the idea of Brazil Foundation? I'll go back a little bit. I was born in China of Russian Jewish parents, and I came to Brazil when I was 13. I went to school here. I had to learn a new language. I had to make new friends. I had to understand a new culture, and I had to understand a new country. And I was talking to somebody this weekend, and I say, I feel like a brick. Brazil, Russia, China. So I'm not global, but I'm brick. I'm quite global. And having grown up in Brazil, having had opportunities to study, having had opportunities to go abroad to study, um, and then having had a very interesting life, I won't go into now because it will be a very long story. I felt that when my time to retire at the United Nations in 1960, when I was turning, um, no, in the year 2000, when I was turning 60, uh, I wasn't ready to retire. I wanted to do something else. At the UN, I worked very closely with NGOs from all over the world, providing them with information and briefings about what the UN was doing on all the various subjects. And I saw people who were very inspired, very interested in their own communities, in their own countries, and wanting a better world, wanting a better city, wanting a better community from wherever they were coming from. There were 1,300 NGOs that were registered with the Department of Public Information. And that's where Manuel and I worked together in different parts of the world. And I saw how difficult it was for NGOs to raise money to do what they knew what to do. They knew how to go about solving a local problem, a problem they had to face on a daily basis. So when my time to retire came, and it happens at the UN on your birthday, and on the 60th in my days, Manuel, I don't know now, it's a little bit later, 62, 63, I'm not sure, 65 now. They give you a little more time. I wasn't ready to retire. To me, retirement was an ugly word. And I started thinking, what would I like to do next? And as I thought about that, I felt I really wanted to give back to Brazil for the opportunities I have had in life. And if I could help one organization or one person even achieve some of the things I was able or given a chance to achieve, that would be worth it. And so Shep and I talked to many of my friends. Armando heard me until he was bored to death about what I wanted to do and how I was going to go about it. And I went to a wedding in New York to a friend's house. And there were about 40 young people there, all Brazilian, and they were celebrating one of them who was getting married. And I decided this is a good group to ask. They were all professional. They worked in New York. They paid taxes. They were happy to be there. And I was wondering if 40 of them who were Brazilian were meeting for a Brazilian wedding, they had saudades. So I walked around the room and I asked them, if you had an opportunity to contribute financially to an organization that would then take your resources and give it to another organization in Brazil, a not-for-profit organization, who would then be able to use that money to make, even if it's a little bit, to make life better for a community, a school, I don't know, different organizations do different things. And we now have 900 projects that over 25 years we have supported. And there are very many different things. And the most extraordinary statistic that I've learned as I was preparing for this is that 86% of the organizations that we have supported over the years are still active. And that, I think, is absolutely fantastic in a world of such uncertainty really very impressive. Not my doing, but their doing. And so I walked around the room, and all 40 said, "Oh," and I explained to them, if you give in the United States for a project in Brazil that would be selected with all the care, all the transparency, all the um, details that we need to make sure they are the right organization to receive your resources or our BrazilFoundation's resources. I told them that the organization I was trying to create was to be called Brazil Foundation, and that's really audacious. It was audacious as a name and as a vision. And all 40 said, "Oh," and I explained to them that if they were doing that in the U.S., they would get a tax incentive. They can give, and they would, at the end of the year, report it to the IRS and have a tax incentive for the amount that they gave, a percentage of that. All 40 said yes. And the mother of the groom shook my hand. She came up to me. She's not as tall as I am. I'm not so tall, but she's even smaller. She shook my hand and she said, "I pledge $1,000." And she was the first one to say that she was going to give for an idea. At that point, we had no office, we had no money, we had no structure, we had no staff. We had an idea. And so that's how it started. We had our first meeting with volunteers. I had lunch with a young man called Marcelo Halaki, who's a lawyer, who was one of the volunteers who came to a group meeting of volunteers, and he said that he would like to help. Whatever he could do, he would help. I said, "Well, if you could ask your company, a law firm, to register us as a nonprofit organization in the U.S. so we can start working and do it pro bono because I have no money to pay you, that would be wonderful." So he went back, and that same afternoon he said, "Yes, the company said we have a pro bono program, and I'm going to do it." This was in April. By June, we had our 501c3, which is the not-for-profit registration number. So that's how it started, and the volunteers were all very interested in, as I said, giving back and help. They understood that we would need money, and we also at that point spoke to Suzanne Workman, who was my friend from high school here in Brazil, and I asked her if she would like to be the Brazilian pillar of the bridge between the U.S. and Brazil. That in the U.S. we would raise resources, and in Brazil we would select projects to be supported, because you couldn't do it from the U.S. You had to go visit the projects. You had to go understand the context in which these projects were being organized or being done. Or if there was no community interest in the project or no interest from anybody in the project, then obviously that was a non-starter. So you had to have people here. And Suzanne traveled up and down Brazil from the very south to the very north for the first 10 years. And she has many stories to tell too. And we have some wonderful projects that we were able to support starting in 2002. In 2000 in the year 2000, on my birthday, when I was retiring, Avina Foundation gave us a small grant of $20,000 because I knew the program officer there, and he liked the idea. He worked in Brazil before, and he liked the idea. He said, I can give you the 20,000 without having to go to the board, discretionary money that he could spend. And he said, but 15,000, you have to open 2 offices with the 15,000, and 5,000 you have to match before you can give anything. And that was a very, very good way to start because we had a direction to follow. I spoke to Peter Cleaves, who was the program officer, the other day. He's in Texas after a wonderful career at Avena and elsewhere. And he said, you know, sometimes things just seem right. And you gamble on it. And you trust. And this brings me to the word that I think is the most important word in the world of the first, second, and third sectors. The public sector, the corporate sector or the private sector, and the not-for-profit sector. Trust is something that is very rare in between those sectors and to gain that trust, for us to gain the trust of donors, to gain the trust of NGOs, for us to trust the NGOs, it's a very important word in the vocabulary and of the history of BrazilFoundation. And I think we were able to build on that and receive that. I'm seeing that I have about 5 minutes more, and I can even start talking about the different things we did. I'll do it very shortly. We had established, first of all, we had to raise those $5,000 to match before we could do anything. Second, we brought Suzanne to New York to meet with the volunteers and to set up the first idea of the office in Brazil and the office in Rio and in New York, in both our homes. For the first year, Suzanne was at home as well with Katya, who is our office manager still today. A wonderful person who couldn't come because she had knee surgery and couldn't make it. But she is also an essential pillar in the foundation. We decided we would work in areas of education, health, human rights, development, and culture, which covers about everything. I don't know if we have anything. You have it there. Okay. And we also had a couple of other things that we decided in those very first days. We were not going to work with governments, either in the US or in Brazil. We wanted to keep our independence, and we wanted to be able to make our own decisions in choosing whoever we wanted to support. So there was no obligation to either governments in the US, state, federal, but our grantees absolutely could have local, state government grants or federal grants or participate in scholarships or whatever way they could get resources. We selected projects through them coming to us. We never went to an organization and said, we're going to support you. We had organizations come to us. The first year, we had an edital, a call for project, 75 or 73 organizations responded. We had money for 3. And because of a favorable exchange, we had a little bit of money left, and we gave an award to a 4th organization, which was very special, from Nova Iguaçu. But that is going into details. So these were the kind of things that we tried to keep: transparency, good management, Vigo will see whether we were able to keep that good management going. But we have our first very successful event to raise money was a gala organized by Nizam Gwanais, a publicist, and it was at the Metropolitan Museum, and we raised $2 million that evening. That was wow. In the first 10 years, we never reached that amount. That was also the beginning. Some of that money went into an endowment, and we said that by 2025 we would raise 25, no, not 25,000, 25 million in endowment. We didn't reach 25 million, but we reached 10. So that's already good. And we need to do more. And we need to get the interest of people like you here to be interested in getting to know our projects. If you travel in Brazil and if you're going anywhere, we have projects everywhere. The office in Rio can help you organize a visit if you feel like it, or here in Rio. We need you to talk about Brazilian NGOs with trust and with faith in their work and in their accomplishments, and get other people excited about it and join us, whether with small grants, with big grants, with periodic grants, with monthly grants. Anything counts. Everything counts. I had a number of questions that I'm not sure I touched on. If you remember any question you asked that you would like me to address, I'd be happy to. If not, somebody asked me once whether there's a difference between volunteers in Brazil and volunteers in the United States, and fundraising in Brazil and fundraising in the United States. And I would say yes. The volunteers that built BrazilFoundation in the US were all people who were volunteers because they wanted to contribute. And they knew what they could contribute because they were all professionals, they all had connections, they all had different ways of contributing to the organization. They were in their mid-20s, early 30s. In terms of fundraising, the fact that people in the US are more familiar with the idea of giving, whether it's the fiscal incentive or not, whether it's a religious incentive. Jewish philanthropy in the US is probably the most successful of all of the fundraising activities. At least it was 20, 25 years ago when, and I tried to learn from them. How do you do it? And, you know, what brings people to give? And foundations in the U.S. are more generous in terms of giving to the nonprofit sector, or used to be, or I don't know if they still can. And so it is quite different from the picture here. Here there was a lot of mistrust because many of the foundations, many of the NGOs even, were not real, and people didn't trust them. And so that didn't help anybody who was trying to fundraise or to support an organization. I received a message today, coincidentally, from one of our incredible projects in Ceará, education project, called Prece. Prece, one man, Manuel de Andrade, was a young student who was asked by his colleagues in high school if he would like to study with them for the vestibular, for the college entrance exams, and he said yes. And the way they studied it, each one of them learned one subject of the different subjects of the entrance exam and taught the others. And so that chain of learning and teaching, learning and teaching, learning and teaching, all of them passed. There were 7 of them. And today there are all over Ceará. He calls them células, but the government has taken this project as an example of how it's possible. It's possible to get kids interested. It's possible to get kids involved if they're given their own authority to do certain things. And anyway, he called to say that in the little town where he's from, where there wasn't even a primary school, he is going to build a city. And I trust him. I trust him. He will build a city. I don't know what kind of a city, he didn't tell me. But may there be many cities built on trust, on inspiration, on the desire to do good and to help people help each other. Since you didn't ask any questions, I guess there aren't any, and we are. Right, but I covered some of them. I was asked a question whether we had not just successes, but if we also had problems during the 25 years of, and I generally spoke about it by saying, yes, we did have problems. Everybody has problems as they grow, but our problems were mostly with the organizations we wanted to support with very little money. They were not equipped to do very much. And it had to be this very close relationship between our staff and the foundation and every NGO that we were helping with their projects with the little bit of resources. Our average was about $10,000. And at that point, $10,000 was 30,000 reais. And today, I think we have a new strategy in terms of how we select the projects and how we want to help institutions to grow, not just by doing one project, but help them build up their institutions so that they can do more. So that was one question, whether that was one problem. Fundraising is always a problem. And until you get wonderful people who appear out of the blue and give you $5 million, that happened to us. I'm blanking on her name. Mackenzie Scott was ex-Mrs. Bezos. She chose us to receive that money, and she trusted us. She asked for no reports. She gave us no guidance. She said, spend it the way you know how to spend it. And that was fantastic. Yes.
Project or institution that help support some communities or education projects. help?
Yeah. Yeah, we have, and that happened from the beginning, but in much smaller uh, measures. Now we have 46 organizations that were uh, fundraising for themselves through BrazilFoundation. They did their fundraising, and in the United States, and the money came to them through BrazilFoundation. This is called donor. This is the donor designated fund. And then there's the donor advised fund, where the donor says, I would like to give money to so and so, and the donor establishes a fund with Brazil Foundation, and Brazil Foundation helps select projects in the area that the donor wants and monitor and make sure that the projects are good. And we have a number of that. Gisele Bunchen is one of those who said that she wanted us to help select projects to that she gave money to. But it's her fund, and she makes the decision. We administer that fund for her, so that is one way. Uh, I remember somebody came to us, a professor, who wanted to give $5,000 to an indigenous population in the Amazon. They didn't even have a bank, so we couldn't even transfer that money to them. But we managed to do it. And that is also a donor advised grant. Yes, it won. You want to?
So my question is following. Recently, over the next 4 or 5 years, 70 development projects that are identified as expenditures. With the, I don't know, violence truly every day police operation, fighting parties. And what I see is that many donors don't want to donate for angels that those. So my question is, talk about that because it's the main question. Oh, if you were, I don't know, I could donate to you, but that's my heart. And then the part will not give. So it's something that you talk about.
No. I'm sorry to say, but my colleagues, Isabel may have, or Cecilia may have something to say about that. Have we had donors who were reluctant to give money because the projects were in violent areas?
You're right. This is really difficult to raise money for human rights and all this demand is considered like, or especially from the private sector, considered like, I don't really know what they consider this. And so, organizations related to gender, violence, and human rights related. So it depends on really so or donating funds.
Exactly.
My wife cannot go, my kids cannot go, my employees cannot go. So, no. Take time to get 9 times.
Hmm.
How do you think your relationship with government Trump has changed, will change?
I have no idea. I hope he doesn't discover us.
Well, we have some other questions here. Over the last 25 years, how have things changed in terms of the types, and this you didn't really of projects Brazil Foundation supports?
Well, the types are mostly in our desire to help them grow. We gave very little money. We gave training. We monitored very closely. We provided them with a lot of support, which I don't think too many other organizations do with the various projects that they support. We did, and we do, and it's very much appreciated. And we had in the 10-year evaluation of the project that we've supported, we had one of the outside evaluators say, you know, you have to have a factor of happiness as one of the measuring because what I am seeing is the happiness that these people have when they achieve even a small thing that you help them do. It's it's really fantastic. And we were able to go and to visit and to I visited your school. I think it's just wonderful. And I my heart bleeds.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
If you're allowed.
And we have a question there.
Well, when you think about the 25-year journey from $20,000 and 3 grants to $50 billion and 890 degrees,
Grantees.
grantees. Um, one of the things I observed in these 25 years is an ability to stay close enough to the project so that somehow you manage to scale up massively without losing the connection and the intimacy. I think of the many stories you told over the years. The woman wakes up every morning and kisses her sister.
Water cistern, not sister.
How is it that you, the directors and assistants in New York, the staff here, manage to maintain that close hands-on relationship with this broad array, both of donors and grantees? I think it speaks directly to the question of trust.
And juggling. It's a circus. It's very important to us. It's very important for us to hear from the bottom up, rather. We never tell the organization what to do. We want to hear from them what they would like to do, what they believe in, and how they feel that they can accomplish something. And then they give us a proposal that shows us their intention, and we are monitoring them for their ability to do it. And when they need help, we try to help if there's not financially, but help by just being there and listening to them. And that really sometimes helps a lot. I don't know if Isabel would like to say anything more about this. Where's Isabel? Oh, she left. I'm sorry. But Cecilia might tell us because she's met so many projects.
Well, we try to promote business from our funds, from our donors, from our boards, so outside business projects. And we have a meeting, a presidential meeting every year with the grantees. So it's also an opportunity for everybody to get to know the grantees. So everybody introduce themselves. So we always feel they're just broadcasting for everybody who wants to watch
Right. Every year with each group of grantees, we have a training, 4 days, 3 days, a weekend. In the beginning, people didn't even have computers. And I remember one wonderful story, if I have time to tell the story, from Pernambuco, where the Banda Revoltosa, the revolted band in a tiny little town in the sertão, não é sertão lá, é outra coisa, no Cerrado. Anyway, in very rural area. It was a band, and the director of the band was 70 years old, and he came to the training program. Oh, and Suzanne, who was our program director here, went to visit them, and she felt that they weren't managing well, and it would be very difficult for them to manage even the little bit of money that we were giving. So she offered them half of the grant, and she said, if you are able to do with this half of the grant what you learn here in the training program, you come back next year and tell us how your band is doing, and we will decide whether we'll give you the other half. Well, next year came, and I'm coming out of the elevator in the hotel in Copacabana where we were having a meeting, and a younger person with the band leader of the Banda Revoltosa comes up and says, Leona, you won't believe this. I said, what? He said, remember last year you showed us how to use a computer, and we had a computer, but we never opened it because we didn't know what to do with it. And so we used the computer, and we were able to find other editais, and we raised 200,000 reais, much more than the 12,000 that you still owe us. And he was so happy, and I was so happy, and this is where the happiness index is very important.
And the trust.
And the trust.
I have a question here that
There's a question there too. And there was somebody here that also wanted to ask a question.
Thank you. I was wondering if you plan on extending your fundraising activities to other countries like UK or Europe.
We've tried, but we're small, and it's not very easy unless you have people there. And I don't think that's in the plans for the time. We keep trying. We will keep trying. There was a question from this side. Somebody raised their hand before. Yes.
Thank you for that. I'm here in my personal capacity. With many thanks to the American Society of Veterans leadership team for organizing, coordinating us here tonight. Big hand clap for them. So Ms. Forman, thank you so much for your leadership. And I'm very interested in following how expanding your support base. Little School, Central, all over. Are these kinds of organic conversations able to happen in regards to West and other places where other demographics exist? And in a bilateral way, in other words, both in terms of educating people about the BrazilFoundation, what the opportunities are, what the funding is, as well as soliciting more supporters. So just be interested in how your communication strategy has evolved over the last 2.5 years. You touched on that some, but if you were able to deeper dive, that would be great.
Cecilia has an answer.
My name is Kim.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Kim.
Kim. Good evening. We've done it. We've done it before. We went into the communities to talk about BrazilFoundation. We went to visit the projects, and by visiting the projects, you provide them with support and with the feeling that somebody cares. We now have a strategy, a 5-year strategy of 4 different kinds of projects that we have been supporting since 2 years ago. So it's now in its 3rd year. We just did one in 2003 on the environment and climate change, and there were 14 organizations that were chosen, and we did it in partnership with people like the Gisele Bündchen Fund to allow us to get more projects in a specific thematic area. The thematic areas are Black entrepreneurship, and that we do with organizations that train other smaller organizations to learn how to be entrepreneurs and how to be successful in their businesses. We have women and racial equity projects. We had this on environment and climate change, of which these new organizations were chosen and are using the grants to grow. The difference between and education. Education is a very important one, and we try to bring people who understand education in Brazil in roundtables. They call them Café con Leona, but it's a roundtable in which we talk about issues of education that people face all over Brazil in terms of what we should be looking for as we select projects, because we get more proposals that we can support. So that helps us strategically to be more effective. I don't know if that answered your question. Yes.
Could you give us an idea of what projects you're currently supporting in Brazil and what you think you're going to grant next year? Specific projects and where they are located.
We have a list that you just sent me today about the environmental projects. Those were the last ones we gave.
So currently we have 4 funds: gender equity, environment and climate change, education, and Black entrepreneurship. And as Leona was saying, we are supporting climate change and environment 15, 14 organizations. We have one here from Binca Levedon,
She's right there.
Yeah. They are mitigating problems in the Mata Atlântica in Minas Gerais. So they are one of our grantees. So we are tackling problems in all over the 7 biomas, the Brazilian biomas, Caatinga, Cerrado, Mata Atlântica, Amazônia, Marinho Costeiro também. So, and on the Gender Equity Fund, we are supporting organizations which tackle gender violence, sexual and reproductive rights, what else? Income generation for women. On the Black Entrepreneurship Fund, as Leona said, we are helping small entrepreneurs to grow their business, become bigger, and generate income for their families, for their business. And in the education fund specifically, we're tackling racial issues in schools in Brazil, including in Maré. We have our organization, Case Maré. Yes, a big one. It's a big one. So we try to support small organizations too. So this year we're going to support a small number of organizations because we are now with a strategy of helping with more money, more of bigger grants, like $300,000 2 years. So since 2022, we have this strategy of the funds helping organizations with for 2 years and with a bigger grant.
Thank you, Yasmin. So, and the next edital will be on education. So, I don't know
Yeah, we don't have
a date yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have the round table before we have the date. Any other question? Yes.
Big challenge. And I would like to speak like this. You can see that it's more, it's a higher barrier or something. The first one I believe that is to find the institutions and see what they really need, if they are demanding for the right things. And the second challenge probably is to find the engineers and reach the donation from the institution. And the last one, you talk about transparency and to show the impact of the actions that it could achieve with the project. And probably there are more things that you have to do to close these actions. But I can see that these three challenges, and I would like to see how you see that and which one you think that is the most achieve.
The challenges are there. They will always be there. The challenge Ivone faces with her absolutely wonderful school in the most difficult area is heartbreaking. And there are probably people who can think of ways that can be, Ivone, for instance, can be helped, how her organization can be helped. And we need you people to give us ideas of how you think you can help us, how you think you can bring the knowledge that you have, the contacts that you have, the relationships that you have, and the resources that you may reach to help us do it. And that's how it's been done. And it's been done, and I'll end on this one. It's been done in a fun way because the volunteers in New York believe that raising money has to be fun. And our galas, of which we now have, I don't know how many, 16, 17 that we've had, or thereabouts, they have been these parties where people like to come feeling very good about themselves, feeling good about what they were doing, feeling good about being there, and kind of pushing each other to give. Nizan was going from table to table saying, he gave this, what are you going to give? And that is not my style. I don't go around it. I have a very hard time asking. But it is important to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get. Bruno had something he wanted to say. They are the very primary source. Well, it's the Brazilians in New York, yes, and they are. And we're having our next gala on September 18th. It's going to be a celebratory gala for the 25 years of the organization. We're going to have something in São Paulo and something in Rio. We're still not exactly sure. Rio people don't like galas. Not only they don't like galas, they don't like to give in galas. They like to go to galas, but they don't like to give. So we've given up on galas in Rio, but we are going to invent something new, and I hope all of you will come. The orchestra?
They
Yes.
can play at the golf.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll talk about that.
Leona, that was wonderful. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for coming and speaking with us. Thank you all again for being here. This is an event sponsored by the American Society of Rio. We have different events throughout the year. We have cultural activities. We have our next event coming up on April 29th. That is going to be held at the World War II Memorial, which is near the Central Mall Airport. A lot of people drive by that have never been. And this monument is in honor of the Brazilian military soldiers who died during World War II. They were the only country from South America who participated in the war. And the 29th is the 80th anniversary of when the troops were there and first the Germans surrendered to them in Italy. And so it's a very